Hello everyone, this is CJ Novo 992 and today we are back with another brand new video. Today's video is one that was badly needed because I don't know about you watching today's video, but this waiting a week malarkey has been absolutely brutal, especially after the way the things went last weekend versus Hamilton. That bad negative result really made this week drag upon drag. It almost felt international break-esque, but thankfully the football's back, ladies and gentlemen, and it's back at Ibrox. But as always, before we go any further on with today's video, as it has been about a week since the last little cheap plug, if you didn't mind subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, that'd be greatly appreciated. It's free, it doesn't cost you a penny, and it just helps us try and close the gap to the channel dream, which is 55 frickin' K. But to business then, shall we? And as always, to start business off properly, let's dive in to the old oppositional preview and have a look at a Kilmarnock side who at my current time of recording are sitting 10th in the old spfl table, only 4 points above bottom, having played 2 more games. Aye, I know people, how quickly things can change in the old Scottish football landscape, because just a couple seasons ago, just a little while ago, Kilmarnock was one of the toughest oppositions this league had to offer. And it wasn't just for Rangers, it was for other teams in the league as well. They would go to Kilmarnock and they would very rarely get anything because of the way they played, the way they set up and the way they made it difficult. But that has slowly but surely unravelled the entire season to where they stand coming into this game of football, having lost their last 6 league matches. And you know what's funny to look at? We all know how iffy I am in terms of the old predictione ons, but if you go back to the start of the season when we made our league table prediction video before a ball was even kicked, I said I expected the Kilmarnock to be near the bottom and to sack Dyer this season. So it looks like I finally got something right. Now, all joking and all shocked that I finally got something right to one side, I think the writing was on the wall for Kilmarnock this season, because pretty much since Stevie Clarke left, they've kind of been unravelling over time, and Dyer was just in a losing position in my personal opinion. But now it's obviously Dyer out, and a familiar face of Scottish football by the name of Tommy Wright is now in. And I wanted to touch on that and talk about that early in today's video, because we all know what Tommy Wright is all about. It is very well drilled, it is very well disciplined, it's hitting long balls to a lone target man feeding off the scraps, and it's playing for set pieces and being a set piece threat. That is his bread and butter. That's always what he's had in all his teams. That's what he imprints into his sides. And despite what Kilmarnock's tried to do over the last 16 to 18 months and move away from that, if you take a step back and you look at what's still wearing the Kilmarnock shirt, the players that they have, it's kind of a match made in heaven, because to get the best out of what's playing for Kilmarnock right now, you are going to have to revert back to that, because that is what they're good at. And it's all that right there is why, despite Kilmarnock being on that 6-match losing streak in the league, which by the way is actually the worst run in the top flight of Scottish football coming into this game versus Rangers, I'm not reading too much into that, because Tommy Wright has only been in charge for 1 of those games, and it was just shortly after he was appointed, and that was the most recent game as they lost 1-0 at home to Motherwell. Which again, that right there is very encouraging from a Rangers fan's perspective, considering there's not much of a managerial bounce if they've went ahead and lost their first game under the new gaffer. But truly, people, from looking into this game of football, it's baffling how Kilmarnock somehow lost that to Motherwell, because Kilmarnock at home had 18 shots in the game, 59% of the ball, 6 corners to 1 corners to Motherwell, and they had more shots on target than Motherwell, but just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net and ended up losing 1-0. Now, I do have to give some props to former Rangers man Liam Kelly in between the sticks for Motherwell. He was brilliant again for them, but still, it was down to Kilmarnock not taking their opportunity and going and getting that goal that their performance in patches versus Motherwell certainly deserved. But as weird it is to actually say out loud, I think they'll be taking some positives and some confidence from that game, despite it being a 1-0 loss, which probably backs up how bad they've been recently in the old season. That was by far their best performance for a long time, so they'll be taking that into that game versus Rangers, especially being the first game under Tommy Wright, and try to build and take that next step forward. And hell, considering how it went last week versus Hamilton, who were on an awful run of form themselves, just lost that 6-point relegation battle versus Ross County before coming in and basically outplaying us. I don't think any of us can underestimate anyone, whether they're near the bottom of the league or near the top, especially for teams that's doing their scrapping, because where we are in the season right now, they are forced to take more risks, they are forced to put more people forward, they are forced to try and take more opportunities and chances, because the clock's ticking in the old season, especially for Kilmarnock, who have 2 games more than Hamilton, who just sit 4 points behind them. Now, I think there will be a lot of comparisons made to this game than the previous game, but for me, one of the key differences, I think, in the game of football will be the difference in high press and energy that obviously this youthful Hamilton side brought to the table. Pretty much from the first whistle to the last, they ran, they chased, doing everything. They were pressing the centre-backs at Rangers. We've never seen that for a very, very long time. I just don't expect to see this Kilmarnock side doing that, especially under Tommy Wright, and no disrespect to the Kilmarnock side, but they're on a different kind of scale from the youthful Hamilton side. They've kind of got players that's been around the block a couple of times, and I just don't think they'll have the energy and the legs to be able to put the pressure on Rangers from the first whistle to the last. So I think it'll be a wee bit different in terms of that aspect, but still, whenever Rangers cross over that halfway line, I'm expecting bodies and expecting pressure. I'm expecting people to be flying in with all types of challenges, because that's apparently how you stop Rangers, ladies and gentlemen. You get them on 1v1 and you dare them to try and beat you. That's what's getting said out there. All you need to do is go one-on-one with Rangers player and they'll pass it sideways. So I'm hoping these players have actually heard this type of talk and heard people trying to take wee jabs at the Rangers side. And if Kilmarnock do come out this with a half press from the halfway line and they try to get it on 1v1 constantly, I'm hoping the likes of Joe Reba, I'm hoping the guys like Hadji are all able to beat a man, open the door and supply some freaking goals. And just briefly, by the way, regarding the old shape of Kilmarnock, has it changed drastically from the side that obviously played the majority of the season? Not really, and again, that could be due to the fact that Tommy Wright only had a couple of days in charge before the Motherwell game, but they actually lined up in a more of a 4-4-2, which Kilmarnock didn't play for the majority of the season. But again, you saw a lot of what Tommy Wright likes in his side. The long ball to Kambamba and him heading it down and Kilty living off any scraps and any knockdowns. And I think that may be a theme of the game, but I'd be surprised if we see 2 going up top for Kilmarnock. I think it'll be a 4-5-1 or maybe in a 5-4-1 where the long balls go up to the big man and somebody tries to gamble on where the ball's going to go for there. And you know something, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, that is the old oppositional preview right there. Yes, Kilmarnock has been truly awful this season, and it's been a season to forget for a lot of the Kilmarnock fans, but not one part of me is taking this game lightly and looking into this thinking this will be an easy game of football. They will be motivated, they will be well drilled, they will be well disciplined, and it will be as difficult as we allow the game to be. If we're as passive in that as we were last week, it could be a long grey hair turner, but if we just turn it back on, I can see us doing real damage in this game, especially if we can get a goal early, because the longer this goes, the more confidence Kilmarnock will get. But if we can get an early one, ladies and gentlemen, it might just be a nice day. And that would just be nice, wouldn't it, ladies? Just a nice, stress-free evening watching Rangers. That'd be absolutely glorious. But speaking of glorious, it's now time to transition in to the Rangers side of today's video. And this is when the smile just gets a little bit wider, because we get to talk about some Rangers football things, ladies and gentlemen, especially in terms of this game. And coming into this game, I think we've all got the same opinion and the same mindset. We didn't want to see last week's effort, work rate and desire ever again, because we can sit here and say quite confidently, I think that was the worst performance we've seen all season under Steven Gerrard, and maybe for a very long time under Steven Gerrard. But what I liked about this week's press conference, what I liked about Steven Gerrard, they didn't hide all that for these types of questions. He welcomed it and he spoke about it in detail, that there's been a different energy in the training this week. The intensity is back up. The players and the way they've responded to that draw with Hamilton has been exactly what he wants to see, and that's pleasing for me to hear. And I'm expecting to see Rangers back on track, because you think about it, right? Yes, it was a crap result of the weekend, but bumps on the road come, and if you look at it throughout the season, we've had 3 bumps before Hamilton, and every single time we've responded and got back on track. And from what we're hearing from the gaffer about the way the players are approaching this week, their attitude, their aggression, their intensity in training, it looks like a response is coming. The Mora versus Kelly. Now, speaking of the Rangers press conference, by the way, as you can imagine, a lot of it was down to the compliance officer and that conversation that we had a couple of days ago on the channel, which was good to hear, by the way, because I sat there and made that video 2 days ago, and then to hear Gerrard sort of bring up similar points and everything like that and make me feel less like an absolute rocket felt brilliant, if I'm being honest. ladies and gentlemen. And the way that he spoke and the way that he controlled that press conference was absolutely immaculate. If you enjoyed my video and the things I talked about, go ahead and click the link in the description. This is much, much better than the way I broke it down, and what he said and the way he came across was absolutely spot on. Where we've had Rangers managers in the past sort of been led astray and been controlled by certain questions and that doesn't happen under Steven Gerrard. He was strict, he said what he wanted to say, and he got his point across perfectly without going too far or going too softly. It was just magical for the gaffer. And if you want to see the entire thing, I will leave a link down there in the description below. It's definitely worth a watch. But challenges and the compliance officer and all that to one side, we need to move by it, ladies and gentlemen, because there is a game upon the horizon. And one of the main things from this week's press conference that I think will make a lot of us very happy is the fact that Scotty Arfield is back in training. And Gerrard talked about the lift he's brought into the training, the way people responded, the way the levels went back up again when Scotty Arfield comes in there. And that's just brilliant to hear that Scotty is back training and there's been no relapse or anything gone wrong since he's been back in training. Now, for the game tomorrow, Gerrard wouldn't say, obviously, if he was involved in the game tomorrow, but the way he was speaking, the way he was leaning, it sounds as if still the plan is to bring him back, which was the date we've spoken about many times on this channel, for the European game on Thursday. I think this game will be too soon for Scotty Arfield, but it won't be too soon for the next man, Jermaine Defoe, who was back in and amongst the training. And Gerrard actually confirmed that Defoe will be a part of the game tomorrow. And interestingly, did kind of leave a wee teaser as well, saying that he might just see Jermaine Defoe and Cedric Itten starting with each other. Because if you remember, the last two times that Itten has played versus Kilmarnock, it's been on that wide right role that he's had there. And if we're going to do that and then bring in Jermaine Defoe in the middle of the park, we may just see flashbacks to Jermaine Defoe in his prime, living and feeding off the big man, the target man, knocking balls down for him. That could be interesting to see in a Rangers shirt. But as exciting as that gets me and the possibilities start roaming in my head, I do think we'll see Cedric Itten in the centre, I do think we'll see Hadji on the right, and I do think we'll see Kente on the left, and I expect to see Defoe off the bench at some point. But it's fun to imagine a world that we get to see both of them start with each other, because that might just be beautiful. The rest of the team, by the way, remains the same. Everyone else is good to go apart from your man Katic. The only other suspensions that we've got for players that will be missing is Alfredo, who's serving his last match suspension in this game, so he will be back from now on. And obviously Kamal Roof, who's had his suspension confirmed and now will be missing the next two SPFL matches. And you know something, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is the old oppositional preview. That is the Rangers conversation, and that is the latest Rangers injury / suspension team news. Now, it's time for us to take all of that, fire it into the old mixing bowl, and try and come out with a cheeky wee prediction on. And this game for me, there is obviously wee bits and bobs about last week's result that I hated and everything like that, but I just think we will respond. And maybe I've been blind and maybe I've got my blue tinted specs on, but from what I've seen for the team this season, I think they've earned that right in the belief. So I do think Rangers will be back to their best tomorrow. Now, I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Probably not, given the way that Tommy Wright sets up his team, even when his team is losing. But I'm going to go with a solid, back on winning track. Rangers 2, Kilmarnock 0. My goal scorers are Cedric Itten, because I think he will get the actual service in the game. That would be absolutely lovely if we crossed it into the big man whose last two goals came for headers. It'd be great if we gave him a chance to go and header one. And my other goal scorer, as it has been a wee while, I think Tavernier is getting to get back on track. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. 2-0 for me. Now, all that's left for me today is wrap up today's video. And again, if you did get involved down there in the comment section below, make sure you're getting your thoughts and opinions out there on this game tomorrow. I'd love to know what you're thinking ahead of the old match. And if you did get involved, by the way, I will be speaking to you very shortly. But as always, I've been CJNovo92. Thank you so much for watching. All the best, and bye-bye.